Tuesday, January 25th, in Egypt, riot police clash with thousands of anti-government protesters. The protesters are demanding an end to the 30-year reign of President Hosni Mubarak. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton comments.
The Egyptian government is stable and is looking for ways to respond to the legitimate needs and interests of the Egyptian people.
Thursday, January 27th, President Obama on YouTube urges Cairo to respond without violence.
President Mubarak has been very helpful on a range of tough issues in the Middle East. But I've always said to him that making sure that they are moving forward on reform.
George Friedman is with the global intelligence firm Stratfor.
The real fear of the United States is not that there are going to be elections, but who'll win them.
Friday, January 28th, President Mubarak deploys the military, widely respected in Egypt, and announces he will replace his cabinet.
I have asked the government to present its resignation today.
His government shuts down cell phone service and the internet, which protesters were using to organize. It also blocks the satellite for the Arab television network Al Jazeera. The Obama administration speaks again.
The people of Egypt have rights that are universal. That includes the right to peaceful assembly.
The administration says it's reviewing its $1.5 billion annual aid to Egypt. It still does not call for President Mubarak to step down. There is no clear leader among the anti-Mubarak protesters. Anthony Cordesman is an expert on U.S. national security in the Middle East.
Rushing out to call for change without knowing what change means historically is usually more dangerous than productive.
Saturday, January 29th, President Mubarak names a vice president and potential successor for the first time in his 30 years in power. Fighters fly over Cairo. The crowd uses army tanks as photo props. On Sunday, January 30th, Nobel laureate Mohammad al-Baradei joins the protesters in Tahrir Square. He faults the United States for supporting Mr. Mubarak.
To ask a dictator to implement democratic measure after 30 years in power is an oxymoron. So they need to let go of Mubarak.
Secretary of State Clinton calls for an orderly transition to democracy. And January ends with former U.S. Ambassador Frank Wisner flying to Cairo. He urges the Egyptian president not to run for another term. February dawns with huge marches. A calm, almost festival atmosphere prevails. President Mubarak speaks.
Regardless of present events, I did not intend on running for another presidential term.
But he says he will remain in power until the presidential election in September. Al-Baradei calls it an act of deception. President Obama calls for change, but does not ask Mr. Mubarak to resign.
An orderly transition must be meaningful, it must be peaceful, and it must begin now.
But it's anything but peaceful on Wednesday, February 2nd. Pro-Mubarak Egyptians on horse and camelback charge into the crowds in Tahrir Square. The U.S. warns the Mubarak government that if it is instigating violence, it must stop. Carolyn, Presutti, VOA News.